Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of I'm Not Okay Why. This is part two of Prejudice and Pretense in the Black community. In other words, colorism amongst the Black community. It's still much more ground to cover with this topic. On Tuesday, you heard part one, and pretty much a woman's perspective is what you heard from part one. But today you're going to hear part two, uh, pretty much on a men's perspective. We have Pastor Larry King and Pastor Carlos Calhoun, along with myself. We're going to talk about it and be as transparent as possible, because what we want to make clear with this topic is how important it is and how deep it goes. So let me just take care of a few things. You can follow I'm Not Okay Why on the social media platform, which is IG and Facebook. We actually are a part of reallyrealradio.com. Each Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m., you can listen to different topics. I'm Not Okay Why radio show. It's a platform of amazing panelists with different backgrounds. And what we do is we talk about the issues that we're not okay with in our community. And what we're hoping to do is start the conversation so that there can be a complete wholeness and healing in our community, because we avoid, certain conversations. We really do. We avoid certain conversations, and we just want to pretend that they don't exist, or we want to act like something is really not a part of our culture, or we are ashamed of it in some way. We really need to talk about so many different subjects, and that's what I'm Okay Why does. We cause you to confront the very thing that you swept under the rug and have avoided and didn't want to talk about. So thank you once again for tuning in to this episode. Listen, we have a show called Reveal and Heal Podcast, which also you can tune into each Monday on Facebook Live at 6 a.m. Motivation Monday. You can follow Relationship Lounge presents Reveal and Heal Podcast on all major platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora, all of the major outlets. You can't heal if you won't reveal. So see, you got different podcasts that you can actually be a part of and listen to, and hope that you will find something that is said that will help you along the way. Let's get it popping. Pastor Calhoun, sir, how are you today?
Hey, hey, I'm doing awesome today. How are you doing, Coach Dale?
Man, listen, I'm always excited to have the opportunity to talk about the very things that are troubling to our community, not to throw shade, not to hurt anybody intentionally, but I'm a part of the community. We are in a process of healing, and it's a continued process. So we have to talk about these things that are very, very uncomfortable for our community. We are part of the community, so we know in hindsight what they're saying, in their head even. Why you want to talk about this? Why you want to stir up, some mess? Why you always, gotta bring up stuff that people not even, want to be bothered with? It's like, we know the conversation, right? We know those little fusses that they would try to stir up and call you messy Bessie about, So listen, let's get it started. I'm excited about it. Tell me first of all, when you hear uh, prejudice and pretense amongst the Black community, what is it that comes to mind?
Well, listen, I want to first of all just thank all of those who are listening. Listen, I just got to let you know that Tuesdays are great, but Thursdays are special.
Okay.
There's oil. There's an oil. God looked at Thursday and thought, that's special. That's special. So I'm always excited. I'm always excited about Thursday. So I want to thank all those who are watching, my family, my friends, for tuning in every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 o'clock. But so we got another great one on cue today. And so we're talking about prejudice and pretense in the Black community. And so this man, we got to spin this thing around and turn it upside down so we can
Come on
catch
now.
the different aspects of this. So so when we hear this, as we were getting ready to come on, you and I were talking, and you used a term called colorism. And Coach, I've experienced colorism my whole life, but never was introduced to the term until recently. And it's interesting, Coach Bill, when you finally can put a name to something. So if you go to the doctor and you know you have this symptom, and you know or let me say it like this, you know you're experiencing this, and you know you're experiencing that, but there's no name to it. Sometimes I think I really believe this. I'm teetotally convinced that sometimes it's beneficial when we can put a name to an experience.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the process, right? Part of the process is you go to the doctor, you tell them what you're experiencing, and then hopefully, prayerfully, that doctor diagnoses and gives that disorder, that disease, a name. And for us as a community, I think part of the process is that we've actually put a name to this prejudice and this pretense in our community. So when I hear this prejudice and pretense in the Black community, I think honestly that one of the first things that come to mind is hatred.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. Elaborate, bro.
Like I said, we got to turn this thing around. We got to flip it upside down. We got to really look at this, because when we hear and when we see and when we experience people not liking part of themselves, when we see people, you know, it's interesting. Oftentimes, so you ever have a parent that really gets frustrated with a particular child? They got 3, they got 4, 5 children, but it's one particular child that seems to really just press their buttons and just seems to aggravate and irritate them. Oftentimes, the child that they are in constant conflict with is the child that's most like them.
Wow, that is the truth right there.
So sometimes people that are acting out or aggravated or infuriated by something, it's oftentimes the something that they see in themselves, and it's oftentimes the something that they see in themselves that they don't like about themselves.
That is true. I'm gonna be transparent. That is true. Being a mother of 5, being a grandmother of 15, you know, when you recognize familiarity and you recognize something that is a thorn that has been a challenge for you, you know, it could be attitude, it could be personality, it could be choices or in decisions, it could be likes or dislikes. And that thing that has just been a poker, you know, to you, it's something you want to avoid as you grow and you become better, or you grow into a better place. You don't want to recall, you don't want to revisit, you know, you don't want to acknowledge those areas. You hide it. You know what I'm saying? You act like it never happened. And then that doggone thing shows up in a child of yours, a grandchild of yours, or someone that you love. It looks just like you. And what you do is you beat yourself up through that person. But that person is the one that's feeling it and dealing with it, and it's going to impact, not knowing that what you're doing is beating up on yourself.
Wow. So
That's exactly.
yeah, let's go. We're going out there, but we're gonna bring it back in.
Okay.
We're gonna go out there, but let's bring it back in. So
Okay.
I gotta stop. You gave some information, so I got to interact with information. So you said the mother of 5, grandmother of 15. Pastor, you was doing something besides praising the Lord.
Now look, yeah,
5 and 15. It wasn't all Bible study. All right. Come back.
I had 2 husbands, and I was being a wife.
It wasn't always near my God to be. Hey.
To God be the glory.
Yeah. So now it's interesting, right? So we when we hear prejudice, or for others, I'll speak for myself. When we hear prejudice, we oftentimes the first image that comes to mind, of course, is our experience. Is
Right.
the African American, the Negro, the Black man, the experience of us. And of course we see the 60s, and we see Jim Crow, and we see white only water fountains, and we see colored only balconies. But what happens when that same mentality and that same mindset is then self-applied to our own people?
Man, it's on 1,000. It's on 1,000%.
Yeah.
Because of what I just stated, though. Pardon me for interrupting you, but recall what I just stated. The reason for it.
Right.
It's because of what I just said applies to how we look at each other as a community.
Right. So it's so, like I said, we're 30,000 feet. We're jumping out the plane, and we're nowhere near the ground yet. But as we're jumping out the plane at 30,000 feet. So yeah, you're absolutely right. What you said is correct. It's when we hear those statements are, it's when I said hatred, it's self-hatred.
Wow.
How can I love you if I don't love me?
There you go.
Now
you're talking.
When the Bible says to love thy neighbor as thyself, well, that's implying that you first love yourself. And so sometimes the issue is, how can I love you if I don't love me? So now we hear these things. So Coach Deb, so when I was growing up, I'm 46 years old, so born in 75. So you do your math and figure out the era and dispensation that I grew up in. When I grew up, I remember hearing the things like, so history class, when the time would come to talk about Africa, because of not history but his story. His story of Africa was nothing with it. And so probably the mindset was, I'm gonna have to hit somebody before this is over, literally. Because some white person was gonna say, African booty scratcher. But see, that wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't the white person saying the African booty scratcher. That's problematic within itself. But the real problem was the Black person saying African booty scratcher.
It was the Black person.
Let's flash forward. So, like Dexter, I spent years at Cartersville school system as a mentor. And so we're talking, 10, 15 years ago. We'll say 10 years ago, matter of fact, because I have some dates in mind. 10 years ago, I go into the Cartersville school system mentoring, and I hear the same term. Now, we're talking about 20 plus years difference. The textbooks have even gotten somewhat better. And I'm still sitting in the cafeteria with 2 young Black men, and I hear the term African booty scratcher. What, how are we still here? How do we not know beyond his story? Why don't we know history? Why don't we know about Timbuktu? Why don't we know about that much of this Bible that we read and understand today was written by people of color, that the characters in the Bible were people of color, that the great Bible scholars, Augustine, that we study in seminaries, or African of descent, Augustine of Hippo. And why do we not know this? Why are we still walking around with this his story version of Africa and what it means to be a man or a woman of color? Why is it that we're still so confined and complex by who we are and what we are and our history and how we were created? And so, you know, that alone, this African booty scratcher mentality, is problematic and plaguing to this day our community.
Well, if you allow me to interject, you know, it's conditioned thinking. That's my opinion, is that it's conditioned thinking. And for the listeners, for those that are listening today, we don't have our doctors or our therapists on this today. So we're going to give you transparency. We're going to give you, you know, our own perspectives. We're going to give you our own stories and our own understanding, and hope that what we share is something that you also share. Welcome, Pastor Larry. The conditioned thinking, in my opinion, Pastor Calhoun, is something I believe is where we are, because even when we started learning about us as inventors and us as creators and, you know, artistic, you know, people, geniuses, and you know, being a part of history, we didn't want to believe it. We didn't want to believe it. Man, we, even when it came to the Bible, you know, and our role, we didn't want to believe that. We're accused of being brainwashed and all this kind of stuff. You know, it's a rebellious, rogue, and all of that. Our lack of knowledge when it comes to our own history is pitiful, because the names that we call each other amongst our own community, a lot of this stuff we don't even have a clue as to the name of it. Many times I heard things like Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom. Even to this day, I hear our community call, you know, individuals Uncle Tom if they recognize a Black person, you know, being humble in some kind of way, or falling behind a white person like they kissing up on them, when Uncle Tom actually was a dude that would not submit to the ways of the white man. He would not beat his Black sisters and brothers. He would not. He was rebellious. He was rebellious against the demands of the slave master.
That's correct.
Now, Coon is, you know, that's a different story. So, but see, these names, though, it didn't come from our white counterparts. These came from our community. And because these names exist, we have formed a certain attitude or dislike for ourselves. We look at one another with bitterness and hatred and disdain. But psychologically, it's that individual that's looking at themselves. That's my perspective. I'm not a doctor, but I'm speaking on a level of the scenario I shared with you earlier, how the familiarity of noticing something that has been a thorn in your side, and something that has been a burden to you, something or a weakness that you dealt with, a fault, or, you know, or a place in your life where you didn't like a direction you were going, or choices that you made, or whatever, and you notice that in your children, grandchildren, or people that you love, you want to distance yourself from it, and the way to do it is to abuse the child in some way. We find ourselves doing that, calling them names and whatever you hate about yourself. If you don't like your color, you Black so and so. I mean, I heard all of that. you big nose. You know, it's like you hear all that in the community. It didn't come out of my household, but I heard it in the neighborhood. I heard it amongst the village.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So that doesn't sound like a love for the people. So I want to bring Larry in right now. Larry, what is your perspective, sir, when it comes to the name calling in the community of the Black people?
Well, I can tell you from being of a dark-skinned nature, I've heard all the black monkey, tar baby, black jelly bean, baby. But I think a lot of times we look at it as poking fun or, jugging at one another, but it becomes detrimental, especially when you already have to deal with it psychologically by yourself. So then when you have other people, for me being of a dark-skinned nature, a lot of times I was down on myself because I was Black. Everything I looked at, it was looked at negatively. But we have to stop doing these things and start loving. I've never heard a white person say, "Oh, I don't like you because you're tan." "Oh, ooh, your nose is real small. Oh, look at your little lips." They don't do that. That I've heard. You'll hear us in our community, we'll degrade each other because somebody got good hair. Or we'll degrade somebody because they had that. Or we'll degrade somebody because they got wide nose, thick lips. But what we have to understand is this is how God made us. And if that's how God made us, as we were talking about on the other episode, that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. And we have to start having more affirmation about ourselves as people. Because I'm reminded of the Willy Lynch syndrome.
Okay.
And if you really read that and you look at it, it's being perpetrated even to this day. He said, you get the old against the young, the light against the dark, the blue eyes against the brown eyes, the big lips. I mean, so it has been set in motion. And he said, if you can get them to believe this, he said they would do this for 300 years, up to 1,000 years, and it'll become self-sustaining. Well, it has become self-sustaining. But I take it even a step further. If you look at TV, if you look at music, they do it, rap music, they do it also. Because in most of your videos, you have, if you got 20 females, you have all them light skinned, but you had that dark girl, and the only reason why she there, because she got a big old butt. So it's almost like you're being used for an attribute that somebody else don't have that's of a different hue. So we have to be careful how we talk to each other. We have to be careful how we treat each other, because words are powerful. Whoever made that analogy, sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words, or whatever it is, words never hurt me, that's a lie from the pits of hell.
Indeed.
Because words have power. You tell a person, and just like me, you tell a person that you black and ugly your whole life, eventually you're going to start believing it. You're going to believe it. And what happens is you start believing that, and then you start living out what you believe. So if I feel like I'm ugly, guess what I do? I start acting ugly. I'm loud, I'm obnoxious. So we have to be careful how we talk, because I really truly believe that words have power.
Pastor Calhoun, sir, what is your perspective on black equaling ugly, and black equaling evil, but white equaling right and equaling pure?
Well, so it's foolishness at its best, but let's not just take the easy way out. So there was something that was misused in its concept. So when we talk about darkness and light in a general idea, there is a connotation of dark as darkness, not dark skin. My skin It's not my sin.
Mm.
So there's this idea of darkness, and the darkness has a negative connotation. But our dark skin is not darkness. So that's somebody taking a idea and abusing it or using it for their own advancement. And so that's what Larry's talking about. That's the reality. So
That's the reality.
So when we take someone of any pigment, they don't see representations of themselves on television. They don't see representations of themselves in magazines. They don't see representations of themselves in toys. And so, even at wonderful homes where affirmation is given, that child still has to wrestle with this idea that in a society where everything that's seen as Black is negative, but everything that's seen as white is positive. So that child has to wrestle with the idea that Black men are criminals. They can know better. They can have a pastor. They can have a father in the home. They can have good representation, but there's still this overt message being sent to them that when it's a Black man, and I grew up with the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. But in our society, the Blacker you are, the more of a threat you are. So if he's I'll be sure, then you might be all right. But if he's Wesley Snipes, you're gonna lock your doors. And so whether it's voiced, and it is voiced, let's be clear, it is voiced, but whether it's actually voiced or if it's subliminal, it's being perpetrated, it's being pushed that the darker they are, the blacker they are, the stronger they are. And so then we end up in our society with the brown paper bag test.
Right.
Those who are of a fair complexion, for listeners, I myself like I'm dark skinned.
Right.
And so we experience this thing where if you're darker than the paper bag, you too dark. We grew up in time where there were skin bleachings and people, and even today you hear people of African American descent saying, "Oh, I don't want to go out in that sun. I don't want to go out in that sun. I don't want to get blacker." Well, what is that really saying about you? Not to get me wrong. There's many reasons not to go out in the sun. It's hot. Many reasons not to go out in the sun. It can cause skin cancer. African Americans can get skin cancer. But to worry about your pigment getting darker, because to me, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. To me, when you say that, that's that small note. People say, "Well, I didn't mean anything by that," but you saying that I don't want to be out in the sun too long because I don't want to get blacker because I want to do everything I can to look lighter, to be whiter.
Wow.
That Pastor Calhoun, that is so true. But while you was talking, and it's funny that we're talking about this today. I went to eat with my sister, and my niece came in, and we seen this lady, this Caucasian lady, who looked like she had Botox in her lip. And my niece said something, and she didn't even know anything about this show. She said, "She's paying for what I already have." White people pay millions of dollars a year to be darker tanned or to have bigger lips. And we get it naturally, but we look at it negatively because psychologically, we think something is wrong with it. But they're actually paying money, hundreds and thousands of dollars to have lip implants and different things, butt implants, and it comes naturally for us. So I've seen Pastor Calhoun. Me and Pastor Calhoun probably about the same color. I think he might have me beat a little bit, but we about the same color. But you would be amazed at the people subconsciously love Black men, dark-skinned guys, but they'll never come to you and say, you know, I love black, dark-skinned men. But I always tell people this. When I grew up, and I'll just be honest with you, I couldn't stand Al B. Sure. I couldn't stand Christopher Williams. I couldn't stand none of these light-skinned guys. I couldn't stand them because I already knew that's what the women want. But when I tell you I thank God for New Jack City, when New Jack City came out and Wesley Snipes was the man, that's when we started getting a little more looks, a little more looks at since that happened. But I just found it ironic, like I said, that what we have naturally, our counterparts, they pay to have.
Wow. I remember the talk. I remember when New Jack City came in on the scene. It was major. Carlos, tell me, do you believe that, you know, you stated earlier that shame was a factor, right? So do you believe that the pretense of you know, our community wanting to be something that we're not, wanting to using the fake creams and wearing the weave and, you know, getting rid of, you know, certain body parts, you know, making it smaller or starving themselves to death on certain diets and different things like that. Do you believe that that not only shame, but fear and hatred, all three, shame, hatred, and fear, do you believe that that plays a role in not wanting to accept or being a leader in being abusive to the community?
So let me say this. I'm gonna go abstract and then I'll try to come back.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem with weed. Let me say that.
No, I don't either. I'm just saying that, you know, it is. Let's just be transparent about it. There are many women that prefer the straighter look because they hate their hair. And then there are actually some men that prefer the straighter look versus the natural. So what I'm doing, because we represent the community, each voice, I'm actually putting it out there.
Yeah. No. I wasn't suggesting that's what you were applying. I was just saying the fact. And let me tell you where I was going with the fact, because I'm about to get my conch back. Larry about to get some finger wet. Anyway, no, why I was saying that.
I knew it. Are you ready for it, Larry?
I knew he was coming back down.
But listen,
I knew it.
No, here's my real point. Y'all, they're learning me. Y'all know me. I like to have a good time. No, but here's my real point. Because I believe, and it's not just what I believe, it's scientifically proven that the first man was the African, was the black man. So, you know, they got some twisted stuff, they how they come about that. But science agrees that the cradle of civilization is Africa, that the first man was a black man, was an African. And so with that, I'm saying that I believe that in our DNA is every variation. So you have black people, that you can have a black person with straight hair. You can have a black person with green eyes. You can have all these different variations because all of that comes from us. So your point is correct, Coach Deb, is the fact is not to wear, it's nothing wrong with wearing weave. The problem is wearing the weave because you hate yourself. So if I wear the weave and then I look at you and say you look unkept because you wear natural, that's where the problem comes in.
All right.
So the problem's not whether you want to fry it, dye it, or lay it to the side. The problem is that you understand that does not define you, and certainly someone who chooses another path is not less than you. So that's why I bring that up about the weave, or whatever you want to do. If your body shape is healthy, if you can do your thing and you're not out of breath and all that, then be you. Don't try to be somebody else. And that's where you were going, talking about some people just doing things that are just unhealthy, trying to make probably unrealistic goals, trying to identify with that's been perpetuated by people that can't even keep the standard. You're trying to look like somebody who has lipo, injections,
Right.
dietitians, and all sorts of personal trainers, and they still can't maintain it. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I think that that it is a not understanding self, a not loving self, a not embracing self. Again, we have so much to be proud of. It amazes me. But it goes back to what Brother Larry was sharing. That's the great lie, the great misinformation is to tell someone who is wonderful, who is powerful, who was created in God's image as others, but to tell them that they're less than, while the whole time you're trying to be them. The whole time you're trying to wear cornrows. The whole time you're trying to get dreadlocks. The whole time you're trying to get your skin darker, your butt bigger, your lips thicker. You're trying to be that. Meanwhile, you tell them. So we got two scenarios. We got one person who is, but who has been bamboozled and has been confused into thinking that what they have is not wanted. And you got another person who does not have it, who desires it, who covets it, and who's constantly trying to mimic and make it happen.
Exactly. On me. So, what is, in your opinion, Larry, what do you believe is the reason why we pretend?
That we pretend about what? That we
pretend to be anything and everything but our authentic self.
Because for years it's been perpetrated, like Pastor Calhoun was saying. If you go to the dictionary and you read the word black, smutty, nasty, evil, thief. So when you read that, of course we didn't make black, but if you notice, you can't have no other color if there's no black, but they won't tell you that. But that's another story for another day. And then you go look at white, holy, godly. So you start feeling that way. Then when your own people start telling you, then you start thinking like that. Because I can be honest with y'all, like half of my family is light skinned and the other half is dark. And we just happen to fall on the dark skin part. And you can see the difference. You can see the difference when we talking and how how they talk to us and even deal with us. I could fuss and be at the same volume as my cousins, but they'll say I'm talking loud. So when you have the white people, then you have the school, then you have home, then you have church. It seems like there's no hope. So my opinion is that once we realize, and I think we've come with great strides. I'll give you an example. My daughter, she have dreads, and she's in the Navy. So the military, and I didn't know this until I read it, the military has started adopting natural hair because black women was getting frustrated because they couldn't wear their hair sits higher than white people hair. So even though this white lady has her hair in a bun, it's not as high as the black woman because her hair is coarse. So they did this interview and all these analysis and found out, this is true. So now they get to wear dreadlocks. But a lot of people are still not accepted to the black culture. If you notice, everybody get to do their culture with their hair, with their language, with their dress, except black people.
Except us.
Except us. So I work at Enterprise as my second job, and this made national news. And the guy that actually was talking to him, he actually came to where we was at. Well, and it's a black guy. So a black guy came in for an interview and he had dreads. He told him, man, you got to cut your dreads. And he was like, why? He was like, because, this is corporate. So when you have those things like that, it kind of deflates you because nothing did he say anything about his education. Nothing did he say about his qualification. The first thing he went to was his hair. So we, as Pastor Calhoun said, there are stigmas on us the moment we walk through the door. I don't know about Pastor Calhoun, but even now, I'm 6 foot tall, 245 pounds in the gym. I start walking down the aisle at Walmart You know, I see people sometimes go in reverse, and they don't understand. I'm a pastor. I'm nice. But they don't know that. They just go by the image that they see. So we have to change the image of the color black. And what we have to do is while they show us negatively in a black way, we need to show them the positive of black. We need to let them understand, as you said at the beginning of the program, and we have to start letting them know how smart we are. We invented the air conditioner. We invented the street light. Washington, D.C. was made by a black man. We have to understand that, all your hair products come from black people. So when we start having pride in ourselves, that's the main thing. And I hate to say it, and I don't care, if we can get these rappers from stop being the role models, these basketball players and football players stop being the role models for our kids, and we as black men and black women start being a role model, we can get our communities back. I remember when I was growing up, every black boy wanted to be his daddy. I don't care if he was a trash man, a trash collector. You knew daddy worked, daddy brought stuff home. He had a role model. Well, when the black man was removed out of the black home, then there's no role models. So we have to get that back. We have to get that reassurance back. And the black men being in a place will carry the reassurance, and then we can get our blackness back.
That is very true. You touched on some real pivotal stuff. Calhoun, do you believe education is a very important role in the Black community? Not just education, but knowledge about who we are. Do you believe that would change? I know I'm asking a couple of questions. Do you believe that would change the whole dynamic about how we look at ourselves if we knew that we mattered? If we really believed and knew that we mattered by knowing about ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So education is the key, and that's not just for us. That's the key for the whole. That's the key for the whole question. Education is the key. So the prejudice from internal or external is based on fear and ignorance, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So education is the key 100%. I believe it so much so that I began writing a children's book, a series of children's books that deal with understanding self.
Understanding self. I like it.
So hopefully, that will get completed soon. It's been in the works for a while since that experience at Cartersville Elementary School many years ago. So it deals with that, and it also highlights in each book. It will highlight a factoid about Africa, and it's specifically designed for people of color to help them understand, and children, because Brother Larry would tell us we gotta catch them while they're young. We can't wait 20 years old. We gotta address these distinct issues while they're young. So that book is coming soon. Selfless plug right there. But I'm not a separatist. I'm not a separatist. I don't think there's some scholars out there that think we need to pull away from society. I don't think we need to pull away from society completely. I do think that there are times that we need to pull away so that we can educate, so that we can affirm, so that we can just and other cultures do that. Now, if we pull away, there are some people that bought some land in Georgia, and they're talking about making a black city, and people have a lot to say about that. The rapper Young Thug, he's bought some land. He's talking about making a black community, and people have a lot to say about that. I'm not necessarily about pulling away permanently, but I do think there are times that we need to pull our people aside and just deal with us. So we're here in the Cartersville community, and the last years, for many years, we've been celebrating the Juneteenth celebration, but for the last couple of years, it's been on steroids, and it's just been a beautiful thing. If for those who are listening, if you ever get a chance, or maybe your community has it, or maybe you can come to the Cartersville community. But it's just blackness. It's twist. It's shea butter. It's It's dreadlock, it's eyelash, it's just a beautiful thing. And I watch it's Black entrepreneurship. And I watch my children as they walk through this strip in Cartersville in the Summer Hill community. And I watched how their eyes lit up as they saw people they knew and people they didn't know. And our food, our fried fish and our fried chicken and our Blackness. And I think sometimes we need to do that. We need to, if you will, baptize our children in Blackness and let them see all of its wonderfulness. Sometimes take a trip, to Atlanta and let them experience the culture. I talk to so many people that talk about Atlanta like it's this horrible place because the news portrays it. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot going on in Atlanta, but there's a lot going on around this world. But sometimes we need to take our kids there. We need to take them to South Carolina and let them experience the Geechee culture. We need to take them to, the coast of Georgia and let them experience those Sapelo Island. We need to, let our people experience the Blackness. Let them smell the hot comb on the stove. Let them see the fish frying and the grits cooking. So I think, education, but not necessarily. Don't get me wrong. There is a need for formal education, but sometimes the informal education, that information you experience sitting on the front porch with grandma while you shelling peas, and you get to understand the history and the culture of a people.
Something you said a mouthful, and I'm delighted that you stated it. And Larry, I'm gonna let you piggyback off of him, but first I want to say, I know you're ready. I know you're ready. I just want to say, I remember so well. I remember the phrase "Black is beautiful" growing up as a child. I also remember the song by James Brown, "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." And I remember, there were a few out there like the Black Panther type mentality. They were like heroic about it. They were bold about it. And then there were many, many others that were afraid to sing that song. They were afraid to associate themselves with the movement of people showing that they were proud to be Black and that Black was beautiful and to be saturated in the Blackness, wearing their fros and the pick up in the fro and wearing the bell bottoms and loving Soul Train. And it's like there were so many in the community that got wasted and lost because of fear. Because of fear, they totally disassociated themselves with the movement of, the right to vote and things like that, because all that was new in the 70s. It was still fresh and new in the 70s. I was a scared little girl in school in the 70s because it was still so close to to the cross burnings, and the hatredness and the meanness and also segregation. That was all still fresh and new. We definitely got to get where you just stated, bro. Oh my God, the richness and the colorism, the colorfulness of being Black. It is so many shades of Black. And when I say that, I'm talking about our artistry. You know what I'm saying? Foods, desserts, and our giftings and things of such. Bruh, we gotta get back. But guess what? There's still that cloud. There's still that cloud of uncertainty. Go ahead and share, Larry.
I'm gonna make it real quick. I agree with Pastor Calhoun, but then I have to disagree too. And I agree with everything he said, but my disagreement is it's okay if they come and taste our cornbread. It's okay if they come and taste our fish, because they took pretty much everything that we cook anyway from us now and mass marketed. They didn't know anything about chitlins, but we don't make chitlins, but that's another story. I don't feel like we should separate, but we should separate. And the reason being, because like right now they have this big critical race theory thing going on. And basically, if you really read it, they have taken that out of context. I haven't read all of it, but I'm about ready to finish. And basically all it's doing is telling you the evils
of what we call the evils of what white people have done. And they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear, that that Andrew Jackson raped a woman and he got 24 kids. They don't want to hear that the great Washington owned many of slaves. See, they don't want to hear that because now they have to talk about it. The evil of America is slavery. And I think what ticks me off the most is that white people love our culture, but they don't want to be us. They don't want to be us. They'll come to Juneteenth. They'll do all that. They'll dance to the Commodore. They'll do it all that. But the real proof is when we're standing out there. Now, I ain't talking about Black Lives Matter. When we're standing out there and you have the ability to change laws for the justice system, and you don't. So I don't care if you never come to a Juneteenth, but I need you as a policeman. When you pull a young Black man over, don't automatically think he's a criminal. See, they don't mind doing it, but they never want you to hear the truth. You would never hear you will hardly never hear a white pastor say that Moses had a Black wife. You won't ever hear that. Now they'll tell you about Simeon, who carried the cross up there because that's a servitude position. They would never tell you that Jesus was not white. See, my thing is, if you really want to be a part of us, be us. There was this lady, I cannot think of her name, it's an older white lady. She had a room full of white people. And she asked them a question. She said, who in here would trade places with a Black person today? Not nobody raised their hand. I mean, it was at least 70 people in there. No white person raised their hand because you know why? Because they know how Black people are being treated. I believe we should, and people are going to be mad at me when I say this, but I believe we should have separate schools. Same curriculum, separate schools. Because white women or white men don't know how our kids react. They don't know how our kids do. Little Billy is different than Lerone or Leroy. So there's a difference in us. And I have to know you in order to know difference. I'm going to tell you this. I learned this. We think diversity is because I got a Black person on the board. That's not diversity. A blue Chevy Impala and a red Chevy Impala is not diversity. They're made on the same assembly line, but the difference is they just difference of color. Diversity is a blue Chevy Impala and a Black Mercedes-Benz. They both carry their own. So if I'm Black and I'm sitting on the board, but I have no power, it ain't no use to me being there.
Well,
there's no use. So don't put me on your board as the token, as we say, nigga. Don't put me on there if I have no power. So once again, they don't mind. Okay, so here's the good. Now, if we really truly want to see change educational, teach Black history all year long. Don't teach it the shortest month of the year. Don't teach it all year long. Let the little white kids know what slavery. Do you not know that California just passed a law that they can't even talk about slavery? They can't even teach it. I think it's California. Is it California or Florida? They can't even teach it. Now, what kind of injustice would that do for the little white kids that don't know nothing about? And this is not too long ago. This is in the 60s that they was hanging. Do y'all not know hanging didn't really start until after we got free? That's when hanging started. And you would get a group of white people on a Sunday morning. They would make a picnic out of it and hang a Black person. But see, they don't want you to talk about that in school because they want you to think that slavery is okay. There's a Black woman that's suing a book right now, Hewitt Book or whoever. And you know the reason why they say it, she's suing them? Because her daughter brought the book home and the book says these exact words. Black people migrated over here. We ain't never migrate over here. We was brought over here. We didn't migrate. We were stolen. You see how they want to comfort? So I believe we need to be separate but equal. We need to teach out of the same book. So if we got to learn about Ulysses Grant, if we got to learn about your Confederate people, then you need to learn about Nat Turner. You need to learn about Harriet Tubman. You need to learn about George Washington Carver. You need to worry about Fannie Mae. You need to worry about Fannie Lou. You need to. Let your kids learn our history. So then they'll have a better thing. They'll have a better look at it. But I agree with you, Pastor, when you say if they don't do it, we have to teach our kids. Because the Mexicans, they teach their heritage to their kids to the point to where the school has adapted to them coming over. They pay teachers twice as much. A bilingual teacher get paid almost twice as much as a regular speaker because you know why? They're going to keep their heritage. They're not going to change who they are. They're not going to deal with the crap that other people give them. I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna share this, and I'm gonna leave you with this. Tell me, how many Mexicans, Chinese, Vietnamese people do you see vote? And I'm gonna leave it at that. Because you know why they don't vote? They vote economically. And until we economically come together, it matters. And don't get me wrong, I'm gonna vote till the day I die because my people died for it. But economically is your vote. Economically is your vote. So we as black people, if they want to, if we're gonna be a part, let's be a part. Because white people still believe, we're not gonna be together down here. But when we all get to heaven, well, no, the Bible says what's done on earth is the same as it is in heaven. So yeah. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
You listen, well, man, okay. That was a whole lot of information. And it was necessary. Thank you. Now, Carlos, I want you to touch on, based off the information that Larry shared, how great is it our responsibility to be the ones to teach our children who they are and teach them how important it is to love themselves and to expose the hypocrisy in our community? Because I believe the very depth of us suppressing how we really feel and what we truly desire from our community is still rooted in fear. It's still rooted in the feelings of not being accepted or being popular. I must agree with Larry when it comes to us doing our own thing, but yet not being separated. But we must, take matters into our own hands and forge, a union, because I believe that's where we're going to come to a place of true love for our Blackness, because we're not being forceful. We're not being forceful about, don't you know who you are? Don't you know you are Black and beautiful? Don't you know your ancestors, this. Sir, please share.
Yeah, just a point of clarity. When I was talking about submersion and baptism or submersion in Blackness, I wasn't talking about our white counterparts. I was talking about our babies. I was talking about our children, that they're the ones who need to experience the Juneteenth, that they're the ones that need to experience the Geechee culture, that they're the ones.
Noted. Yeah.
So that was both parts. Our white counterparts need education, but we were talking specifically about our seed, and so I was saying that our seed needs to see those moments and experience those moments.
Amen.
So to your question, Coach Dev, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I appreciate my brother so much and his enthusiasm, his passion, and his point of view and perspective. But I think, about there's this, I'm a preacher, so there's this sermon that shouts at us our Blackness, and I think that's needed. But also I think that there's this experience, and again, let me clarify, I'm talking about our white counterparts. I'm talking about internal, not external. I'm talking about internal. I think there's this experience. I think there's this rhythm. There's this cadence. There's this feeling, this emotion. I think that is more attractive. People are attracted to our our talk. People are attracted to our music, our dance, our. I think what we have is very attractive. I think sometimes we're dealing with multiple generational um, misinformation and miscommunication. I think if we simply just being who we are, loving ourselves for who we are. Again, loving the sister with cornrows, loving the brother with dreads, loving the brother shouts the fellas with the bald heads. You know what I'm saying? Just all of our different um styles and not looking funny at somebody because their style is different than your style, or their talk is different than your talk. I think the thing that one of the things this was asked earlier, one of the things that's so difficult about being us is that we are so versatile. So there's not just one way of us. We are we are so different. We've had to adapt. We are we are an adaptation. We are a variation. So literally in our communities, you can't say, everybody's like this. We're not mono. We're not mono. So you have those in the community, but understanding that we're not all the same and embracing the difference, but understanding that in our differences, there's unity.
Yes,
If that
sir. Mm-hmm.
And you are right. As we begin to close, we must talk about how to eliminate colorism. So while you're in the vein, um, Carlos, what do you believe is something that needs to be noted today regarding how we eliminate colorism in our own community?
So I think something we can do today, an action item we can do today, is to look at ourselves in the mirror and to love ourselves in the mirror. To look at ourselves in the mirror and to love ourselves in the flesh. To understand that we are unique, mysterious, masterful. And as we extend that grace and love toward ourselves in all of our variety of ways, extend that grace to someone who looks like you.
Right.
Look at that young Black boy and don't see a criminal, don't see a problem, don't see, all the other negative connotations, but see a little bit of you, see a little bit of God, and give them that same grace, understand that they're not a criminal, to see that young Black girl in full blackness, see her and don't finger popping, neck rolling, don't see, baby mama drama. See her and see yourself, see God, and see all the wonders, creations that He has created in variety. It was said on one of our, I think it was on the actual talk show, that oftentimes people would say, "I don't see color." Well, no, we want you to see color. We want you to see me and all of me. So I think seeing, what can we do today? See me, see all of me, love me for being me.
Okay. I totally agree, uh, Pastor Calhoun. And sir, while we're at it, go ahead and share with the people how they can reach you if for any bookings, motivational speaking of any kind, sir.
So you can find me on those anointed Thursdays on
Amen.
KY radio show with Coach Dale. Take care of yourself and one another.
Come on now.
All right. But you can follow me on Facebook, Carlos Calhoun on Facebook. I lead a congregation, Bethesda Baptist Church, Plainville, Georgia. We have a Facebook page, a website, www.bethesdaplainville.org. Got a book that we're working on. We shared that we should have more information. Push prayer call every Thursday morning, 7:30, Facebook Live. We push. That means we pray until something happens. We pray hard and we praise God even harder because He's been real good.
I know that's right. Pastor Larry, sir, I want you to answer the same question that Pastor Calhoun answered.
Well, I mean, he said it so eloquently.
He did.
I don't
He
know
really
if
did.
I don't know if I can come behind that. But there's two key things that I would leave with this. One, I enjoyed the fact that he said that we need to, with the Juneteenth thing. And then he said something that was very key. He said how you sat down with grandmother and them and you listened to the stories. Most of our history is oral history. So when if we don't catch a hold to it, our generation would lose centuries of oral information that was given to us because there's a battle between young and the black. Yeah, there's a battle between young and the black. And then he said something that I had to tell a white gentleman one time. I was working out at the gym and he was like, well, Larry, I don't see color. I said, if I hit you in your face right now and the police came up here, you ain't gonna tell them it was an invisible man that hit you. I said, so you see color. So don't say you don't see color. Just say, like Pastor Calhoun said, you just want to learn, not to use my color against you. But no, I can't come behind that. So I give you my information. Larry King Jr. on Facebook. You can reach me. I'm also a pastor of Perfecting Love Ministry, where imperfect people come to serve a perfect God. I also am one of the co-founders of Gangs Ministry. God always needs, the acronym God always needs good soldiers. We deal with the athletic part. We deal with mind, body, and soul, and that's the athletic portion of our ministry. Freedom Friday is the physical part of another physical part where now since COVID hit, we have to cut it off. But one Friday out of a month, we allow the young people in the community and all over the city to come and show their talents, whether it's rapping, gospel rap, whether it's gospel rap, dancing, poetry, or what have you. But once again, if you want to reach me, I'm on Facebook at Larry King Jr.
I'm gonna leave, with this statement. I believe one of the things that we need to do to eliminate colorism is we first have to start by teaching our youth about colorism. And that's just to piggyback off of Calhoun and Larry, because they both said how important it was for us to start, talking to them while they're young. We also we must check ourselves. We must check ourselves and we must check others, when we identify with colorism. And earlier when we first started the session, Pastor Calhoun recognized that a name was given to the prejudice and the pretense in our community, which is colorism. So now we have a name for it, and we must identify. Whenever we gotta check ourselves and check other people, when we see that thing, we gotta check it. We gotta also keep in mind that colorism does not only affect just dark skinned, it affects light skinned. It also, when I say dark and light skinned, I'm talking about men and women. And oftentimes when it comes to women, light skinned women are frequently called certain names like red bone, light bright, and high yellow. And back in the day, it was known to be a compliment. Come here, red bone, come here, high yellow, or, it's like you wasn't so offended that what somebody wasn't calling you a black something or another. But you see, when you put in that box, as a light-skinned woman, you're often alienated because of the perception that lighter skinned women are more beautiful. That is not the case. That it's like a brainwashing thing that takes place. Like if it's looked at that those type of names are a compliment, that is not the case. It's a lie. So colorism is not limited to just our Black community either. It's not to be, it's not like it's acceptable. It's colorism exists everywhere with the different shades and also the different races, minus the Caucasian, because they have a shade. So what we have to do as a Black community, first of all, is we have to attack that thing, and we have to stop allowing colorism to separate us, because colorism divides us. We think, depending on your color, you think you're better. I'm just keeping it real. Depending on your color, it's just like these sororities that they got. They got a dark-skinned group of women. They got a light-skinned group of women. And they literally treat each other like they're smarter than the other or prettier than the other because of the shade of their skin. Because they can wear red lipstick or pink lipstick better than the other one. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but in essence, it really is like a prejudice against one another. It's like a dispute. So I'm going to leave you with the quote by Beyonce Knowles Carter. We have always been wonderful. I see us reflected in the world's most heavenly things. Black is king. We were beauty before they knew what beauty was. Facts all day. I want to thank you for tuning in to I'm Not Okay Why. I'm Coach Deb. Remember to love yourself, love everybody, and be an example. Thank you for tuning in to I'm Not Okay Why.